Hello Brushwood and welcome to World Book Day. Now my choice is a book called Phoenix by S.F. Syed. He's the author that I'm sure lots of you have read Rajat Kaur. Fantastic book. I really admire him as an author. And I've read this book about 3 times. One of my favourites. So I thought I'd share it with you today. So I'll read the blurb, tell you a little bit about what it's about, and then I'll read. The supernova is coming. Lucky thinks he's an ordinary human boy, but one night he dreams the stars are singing to him, and he wakes to find an uncontrollable power rising in him. Now he's on the run, racing through space, searching for answers, in a galaxy of war where humans and aliens are deadly enemies. The only people who can help him are an alien spaceship crew and an alien warrior girl with neon needles in her hair. The other thing I love about this book is the illustrations. So there are some fantastic illustrations in this book as well. Chapter 1. Lucky dreamed of the stars again that night. He loved the stars and dreamed about them most nights. 1,000,000 points of silver light shining in the black. But this dream was different. This time the stars were calling him. They were trying to tell him something. They were making a small, soft, silvery sound, like the chime of a faraway bell. The sound grew. It surged and swelled, rising up into the sky. Lucky's blood surged with it. His feet lifted off from the floor. And in this dream, Lucky flew. He rose up and soared through space into the stars and the constellations. It didn't feel like a dream. It seemed so real. He rose higher and higher until the sound wasn't distant anymore. It was all around him now, surrounding him with waves of overwhelming power, though he still couldn't grasp its meaning. If he could just get a little nearer. He flew so close he could taste the stars, sparkling on his tongue. He felt their heat on his face. They weren't little pinpoints of silver anymore. They were suns, each one a giant blazing sun. Inside them burned impossible energies, stronger than the fires in a nuclear furnace, bigger than a blast of 1,000,000,000 atom bombs. He reached his hands out to touch them, and he woke with a violent start. He was in his bedroom, in his mother's apartment, back on Phoenix. It was just before dawn. The air conditioning was on full blast, but he was drenched in sweat. A headache throbbed behind his eyes. He fumbled for the lights and then saw his sheets. The top sheet on his bed was burnt. There was a massive hole through the middle of it. All around the hole, the white linen had gone black and crumbled into ash. Lucky checked the bottom sheet. Normal. He looked back at the top one, and there it was again, a gaping hole. Smoke was still rising. His bedroom stank of it. He could taste it in his mouth. Panic rose inside him, tightening in his chest. What's going on? He thought, coughing on the smoke. Am I burnt? He stood up. Black ash fluttered all around him. He waved it away with shaking hands and examined his skin. No burn marks. He felt exhausted and his head ached, but his body didn't seem to be hurt. It was the same puny, clumsy body as always. Everything else in the room looked normal. School uniform strewn on the floor, school bag on his desk. His bedroom walls flickered with star maps, showing every system this side of the space war, and flying among them his collection of model starships. Everything was in its place, undamaged, yet his bedsheet was burnt. His room stank, and there were ashes crumbling in his fingers, smearing on his hands. Did I do this? He wondered. No way! It's impossible! I wasn't even awake! The memory of a dream flickered on the edge of his mind, then slipped away. He powered down the security matrix and opened his window, gulping in fresh air, trying to cool himself. It was still dark outside, but high above the suburban apartment blocks, the stars were shining. The sight calmed him just a little. He lived in this moon on the edge of the Aries system, and he'd lived there all his life, yet he never tired of gazing at the stars. They seemed so free up there in the sky. Nothing could ever harm them. He could hear the distant roar of starships taking off from the spaceport. Soon it would be morning, and his mother would wake up. She would see the ruined sheet. When he couldn't explain it, she'd get worried. She'd been asking him some weird questions lately, wanting to know if any unusual changes were happening in his body. He didn't know what these questions meant, but from the anxious way she asked, he knew it was trouble. And now this. Trouble for sure. No, he thought, she mustn't see the sheet. I've got to get rid of it. Replace it. Never say a word. He pulled on some clothes and tiptoed out of his bedroom. It was so peaceful in the corridor. He could feel the security matrix subsonic hum in the soles of his feet. Everything was neat and ordered, as his mother liked it. Everything in its place. Shipshape, she called it. There was a faint light under the kitchen door, and the scent of chocolate brownies. She must be in there baking. Oh, of course! On days when she went to work before he was awake, she'd always get up early to make him a treat. The food that had always been his favourite, back from when he was a little child. He crept silently past the storeroom and opened the door. It was crammed with boring household stuff. He never looked in here normally. I wasn't sure where to find the sheets. He hunted through stacks of tin food, toiletries, packs of cotton, and bandages. Even a full battlefield medikit. How ridiculous! Why would they ever need a thing like that in a place like Phoenix, so far away from the war? Lucky! His mother's voice. He turned, and there she was, her apron on, her long red hair tied back. He hadn't heard her coming at all. Sweetheart, she called, what are you doing in there? Nothing, he said guiltily. Why are you awake so early? She sniffed the air. Her blue eyes narrowed. What's that smoky smell? She took off the apron and strode towards his bedroom. Don't go in there! He tried to get in her way, but he was too slow. Before he could stop her, she was entering his room. He followed her in, cheeks flushed with shame. And there it was, the evidence, the ruined sheet, with a hole burned right through the middle. He felt dizzy seeing it again. It hit him with fresh force. Just what a strange thing it was. His mother breathed in sharply at the sight. Fear flashed through her eyes as she took the smoke and the ashes. But in her voice, there was not the slightest trace of surprise. Please, no, she whispered. Not so soon. What is it, Mum? He said, skin beginning to crawl. What's happening? She didn't answer. She went over to the window and stared up at the sky. Lucky followed her and looked up too. There they were, as always, a million points of silver light. Whatever happened, the stars would always be there. No, wait. There was something strange in the sky. A tiny black crack. A crack in the sky shaped like a V, where a moment ago a star had been. His mother slammed the security matrix on. She shut the window and backed away from it, full face of horror. What's that thing in the sky? He managed to say. She covered her face with her hands and breathed in deep. Then again and again, until she'd brought her breathing right under control. Only then did she take her hands away. Her face showed nothing but determination now. Her voice was scarily calm. "We have to get out of here," she said. So that's Phoenix. Have a really lovely World Book Day.